This is the Comm Center, the show that dissects 911 calls and emergency response video from the 911 call until the scene is cleared by two guys who have done both jobs. Tonight, are we racist? You decide while we sort it all out. John and I are going to answer the question, what do you call a black guy on the moon? We'll cover an officer-involved shooting in Phoenix, and John is going to give a history and demonstration of Virginia Slims. All that and what it means for your weekend on the Comm Center.
City council members have announced their plan to disband the Minneapolis Police Department.
We're calling for defunding the police.
Shootings in New York City have more than doubled this year.
Wake up, America. It's the Comm Center with Drew Breezy, where we talk 911 tales and talk cop response as well. This is a TV show on the internet where two best friends attempt to save a small Alaskan town from being dominated by a used car salesman who's forcing all the town's residents to build asbestos-based weapons for the Soviet Union. Drew, how have you been in this past week? I know that it's been a bad week for you.
I've been in the center of turmoil. We, as you know, as most of you know, listening or watching, we had Pastor Samuel Ansong on last week. He was and we only refer to him as the Black Pastor because that's what everybody is referring to him as right now, the Black Pastor. So we had Samuel Ansong. He's known for kind of challenging Vivek Ramaswamy in a town hall meeting physically because he challenged him to do 10 push-ups with him because of Samuel's, affinity for physical fitness and spirituality. And also he challenged him on the tenets of institutional racism. And so we had Samuel on the show to kind of, let him discuss his viewpoint, see where he stood with the candidate's answer and the whole nine yards. Unfortunately, what happened is in the comments section when we aired the thing, there was a little bit of back and forth, and we were, I think, in my opinion, unfairly painted as two guys that just are out of touch with anything involving the Black community or something to that effect. That that there are complete that institutional racism indeed exists, especially in law enforcement, one, and two, John's assertion, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Well, when you say that there's institutional racism in law enforcement and we're law enforcement, or we work in a 911 profession where we don't see the color of the skin, we listen to what people are saying and respond to that emergency. I take exception to that. And John aptly pointed out, look, we're not, when you say there's institutional racism, you're saying that we are part of the institution, therefore we're racist. And that's not the case at all. John, I mean, if you want to weigh in, I got a whole couple minutes I can go about this.
Yeah, we could go all day. Something I built into my 25-part question was that how do we actually say, our institutions are racist when our institutions, particularly for the last 20 years or more, have been led by people of all different kinds of people. Like I even said to Samuel, I said, we're in a post Barack Obama country, right? So if our elections are genuine, that means that Barack Obama was very, very, very popular and that we elected him twice. And that could have been a situation where we could have had a black president, and everything that went wrong in the country, as it always does every 4 years, we could have hanged that around his neck and said, well, this is all your fault. And, look at what we've done. But instead we celebrated the guy. He still remains one of America's most popular presidents. And then you have Samuel, who I'm not attacking, but he's
not in the least.
I'm not attacking Samuel. I like Samuel. I liked having him in because it got us out of our echo chamber. But Samuel is addressing institutional racism with Vivek Ramaswamy, who is younger than me, is a multi-millionaire billionaire running for president, and he's an Indian guy, and there, you could say whatever you want about the 4D chess game with Donald Trump. That being absent, he would be probably a Republican front runner for the office. So
Sure.
in our quote unquote, historically racist party and all this, we would be putting forward a person of color or whatever you want to say. But I'm going to tell you the story of institutional racism as I see it from my job, even though, I don't live in a very diverse place. And even though Drew is from Tampa, or even though, I grew up in Virginia and I went to a high school that was more black people than anything else. I don't know anything in my little small town about what racism is.
Couldn't possibly.
Never having experienced it. In a small town not far from Hawarden, Iowa, a blue Chevy Impala is driving around, circling the area. A police officer spots them and pulls them over. It's two black men. It's a father and son. And the father is teaching the son how to drive. Now, if the news looks at that story, they will see, well, that's a police officer profiling, saying that, this unusual activity, they only pulled them over because they were black. Why did that happen? Well, because some lady out walking her dog said that two black people were following around in a car and she dialed 911. Do you have any idea how often police are called to respond to situations and the context of their arrival and intervening to a situation makes it look like the police are racist when really it's just some old lady who has her own notions and is calling upon the police to save her? That's my experience, or people saying that people of a certain kind, even though I don't have a diverse community here, are out picking asparagus on the railroad tracks. They must be harvesting marijuana. What I see of the institution is people calling the institution for help and making racist claims. That's my experience. If we're going to go by anecdotes, if we're going to go by what personal experience is, and how that defines what the rest of the world is based on what my experience is, well, that's what the rest of the world is, according to me. My perception is reality, and that's my truth. So I guess I'm just going to live in a world where, racist people call me and ask the police to do things. Drew, I have to get down off the soapbox or something. Or start talking about delicious Virginia Slims.
Hold on a second.
First cigarette.
Because here's the Occam's razor that you just revealed to me, because it's happened to me as well. I was a shift commander, and somebody called in and said, "Look, there's a group of black guys. They're outside my house. They're a couple doors down, but they're partying. They always do it all day, every day. They're just out there throwing their dice and all this other stuff." It was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I canceled the call. We're not going out there based on the fact that it's just a bunch of black guys in your neighborhood. If they're causing some kind of scene, it doesn't matter what color they are. We're going to go out there and handle that. So what am I saying that this proves 2 points? It proves 2 points in the sense that, yes, there are still racist people in the world that call 911 or call the police and say, yeah, I got black people in my neighborhood. And that's their crime. But you also have people, safeguards, you have the ones that you are continually calling racist, by the way, who are wise enough to know this is not something that you act on. You don't act on the color of someone's skin. You act on the crime that's being committed. If there's a crime being committed, you act on the breach of the peace if there is a breach of the peace. So both can happen, and both, and it just seems that the one that is safeguarding it, the one that is saying it, that is making sure that it doesn't get perpetuated or saying it happened, are the ones that are being called the racists the most. And it drives me insane. Now, I'll tell you this. This is not going to be, and by the way, let's get this off the table, John. What do you call a black guy on the moon?
An astronaut.
An astronaut. Thank you. I hope that somebody was scared and offended when they heard that little quip at the beginning of this thing, because they're just astronauts. That's all. That's all we're saying, and that's all we're seeing. So when you perpetuate this notion of racism and institutional racism, it undermines the safety of the entire country, because what happened with George Floyd, okay, a black man died at the hands of a white police officer, which always becomes the headline. And people perpetuate this notion that racism exists, Black people have it so hard, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, they're rioting in a town. The officers are vacating their precinct. Everything is overrun. Very, very, very small population of or percentage of the Black community is participating in that. But there is a greater picture where it's deteriorating policing. You can't police anymore because you don't want to be labeled a racist. It's getting cops injured and killed because people are now violently attacking police. Not now, they always happen, but more so than ever, and they feel more empowered to do so because the virtue signalers of this world are saying you're just a poor victim, you can do whatever you want, and the cops are just going to have to stand there with their hands at their side while you throw water balloons at them and while you slap them in the face and punch them or shoot them in the head so they never go home to their families. It's undermining safety. It's undermining public safety. And my point is, there is racism in this world. There's no question about it. It's in this world. It's not just in this country. It's not as prevalent as those who want you to believe that it exists. It's not as prevalent as they say it is, in my opinion. And for anyone that says, well, you can't have that opinion because you're a white man, I would agree with you to a certain degree. However, if you're a white person telling me that, you can't have the opinion about my experience either. And that means the only people that are qualified to say it are the people that perceive it as racism. And it may not be racism at all. It just like you in your example, John, it may be a Black father teaching his Black son to drive, and they committed a moving violation. I can't tell you how many complaints I've handled for bias-based profiling with window tint. Like the windows are so tinted you can't see in the car, yet we stopped this person because they were Black. I will let you in on this little secret, everyone. If you look on my LinkedIn, it's been the same for a couple of years now, for many, many years. For about 6 years, I served as the chairman of the Human Relations Board here in Hillsborough County. It was a volunteer board. We heard EEO complaints. So when the federal level EEO people got either through with their complaint or they didn't want to deal with something, that was kind of minor, and it was like an offense against, not an offense because it wasn't a criminal thing, but when it was in violation of Hillsborough County's human rights ordinance, it would make it to the board that I sat as the chairman of. And I'm telling you, we're a diverse community in Tampa. 1.6 million people in Hillsborough County at last. Off the top of my head, we are served by Republicans and Democrats. The mayor of Tampa is a Democrat. She's a former police chief at that. So it's not like we're just all a bunch of Republicans. I'm telling you, the EEO complaints that we received had nothing to do with Black and white. The only ones that had to do with Black and white were obvious lawsuits. They were just like obvious setups for lawsuits, and the Black people on the committee would say the same thing. So if my point is, if it were so prevalent, why wouldn't the EEO be overrun with complaints? And if it were so prevalent in law enforcement, every law enforcement agency is required to have a bias-based profiling either policy, they have to renew the training on it every year, or they don't get federal funding. So if it were so prevalent, why aren't there more reports of it? Why aren't there more? It's the same thing as saying, look, I can give you 100 examples of racist cops. There's Derek Chauvin, there's Darren Wilson, you mean all the guys that were put on trial? So, I mean, every example you're giving me is something that was exposed and they were handled. They were put on trial or whatever. Darren Wilson wasn't, but so I need to come off of my soapbox, John. I'm just passionate about this because I learned something in Sunday school, to tie it back to a little twinge of religion. It was very simple. It's called the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. I couldn't care less if you're Black, Hispanic. I was married, by the way, to a Cuban woman for 25 years before my divorce. We live in wonderful white bliss now because, my wife is white, and that shouldn't matter anyway. But so here we are in 2024, still banging the racist drum, still creating victims, and I still say this very simple thing. I have 2 stepkids. If I go into my stepson's room and say, "Hey kid, we're going to knock him dead tomorrow. You're going to be a millionaire. You might even be president one day." And then I go into my stepdaughter's room and say, "Hey, listen, I'm real sorry that the world is against you and you are a victim. I'm going to get you through it though. Don't worry about it. But man, the odds are stacked against you." Who in your right mind do you think is going to succeed in that scenario? I know that when you tell me that I'm a victim, I'm going to be a victim. When you just assimilate and you do, as Dr. King said, judge by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin, I think we can advance. I think we can move forward. It's not to forget what happened, some egregious violations. Slavery was horrible, but as John said last episode in the chats, we fought a bloody war over that. A very bloody war, brother against brother. So I'm saying, yes, it exists. It's not to the prevalence that people perpetuate it. And again, if you call it institutional racism, you're calling even the Black people in law enforcement, the Black people that work in 911 centers, the Black and brown people that work in a police agency or fire agency that make the world go round and keep everybody safe, the firefighters and everybody else, you're calling them racist. And it's offensive. If you have no valid data to back that up, I don't think it's fair for you to say that. Fair enough, John?
I think it's fair. And to close out, and I'll just keep it short because you and I, like I said, we could go all day, but you have to ask yourself, why is the myth of rampant racism happening? Well, as a police officer, as a correctional officer, as a 911 dispatcher, we get called racist all the time. And because there's a power dynamic there that they're trying to upset, they're trying to put the person in authority on the defensive. Being a racist is the worst thing that you can possibly be in our society, and it requires the least amount of proof. And so to call someone a racist, to just say it offhand, all of a sudden puts that person into a defensive posture psychologically or whatever. And it's something we have to deflect as 911 dispatchers, correctional officers, police officers. But the other reason it goes on is because there's a certain wing of politics that is all about uniting people that are so-called marginalized. Ever since Lyndon Baines Johnson said in the 60s, if the Black person's going to vote, they're going to vote Democrat. And the idea behind that is that they want to create a culture of victimhood and dependency. They want Black people and people of all colors, except for white people, and even some white people, certain marginalized groups of white people, to depend on them so that they continue to flush them with cash and power. And if the liberal dream of racial and inequality actually occurred, they would have no reason to exist because that's what they proclaim to fight. So it is not in the liberal best interest to erase racism from the earth. It is in their best interest to propagate it forever because that is where their power lies. End of rant. Drew.
Yeah, we can move on. I just any big city that you're going to give me as an example: New York, Chicago, L.A., New Orleans, Louisville. Take a look at the leadership there. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if you say that the institution is racism, just remember who the institution is.
Yeah. Go check it out. I bet you'd be surprised the people that you're claiming are denying people funds and housing. I think you'd be surprised by who those people are. But you didn't check, maybe. Right. All right. So should we go to another great city in America, Phoenix, where last December we had an officer-involved shooting. We want to get to this one because we wanted to show what our bread and butter is about here in Comm Center. Like last week, we had this major diversion into talking about faith and the Comm Center and, racism, certainly in America. And I think we followed that up because it was necessary. But we also want to remind you guys why you fell in love with Comm Center all those years ago by doing a classic officer-involved shooting breakdown. We'll have some police radio to break down, have some comments on that about, what happened and why. And Drew's going to talk about when to shoot a man. Is it when he asks for it? I don't know, but we'll go ahead and play some radio. Like I said, this is from December, I believe 13th or 16th. Both dates stick out in my mind, but it was mid-December, just a couple weeks ago in Phoenix. I'll go ahead and start by playing some radio traffic. This starts as an unknown trouble call. And what is an unknown trouble call? It's when someone dials 911 and we don't know what the hell is going on. We actually have a call for service type that's just unknown. That could be anything. So often people dial 911 and we hear noises and we can tell there's distress or a crime going on of some kind, but we can't tell anything. And then sometimes you'll have an unknown trouble call and other people will call in and kind of start filling in the blanks. I believe that's what happened here, but I'll start playing some radio from a police dispatcher in Phoenix, Arizona, who's telling police officers in the area what's going on. I'll go ahead and go to that beautiful audio now.
Hey, reference unknown trouble. It looks like we're receiving duplicates calling from one of the subjects advising a month ago a homeless subject stabbed complaints boyfriend with a metal stick.
Okay, so he read that like super calm and super straightforward. Basically, they took a 911 call about some kind of problem, and then they were able to deduce that a stabbing has actually occurred, which is a serious weapons violation. It's aggravated assault of some kind, and then. So they continue to get calls on it that are coming in. And I'll keep playing it now.
Okay, in reference to the most recent caller, saying the victim's going to be at 44th Street in McDowell, Indian male, blue sweater, blue pants. He's also bleeding. Complainant advised that they're following even though they're told not to. Another caller saying that someone was stabbed at the Jack in the Box.
Okay. So...
John, I got a quick question for you. What, and you were probably going to address it. What do they mean for our audience when the caller is following him even though they were told not to? What does that mean?
Yeah, I was going to address that big time. We have some really good citizens, and then we have do-gooders, and then we have people who just are kind of reckless. And I understand the situation that, a good person doesn't want to see someone running around town stabbing somebody, and they want to be able to get the best information possible. I've taken many, many calls like this over the years where we'll get a traffic complaint or something, and a vehicle's all over the road. They think they're a drunk driver, and they're following him. Well, then the drunk realizes they're being followed, so they start performing more dangerous maneuvers, and they start driving down closed roads, and our callers will continue to follow them on closed roads, and they'll speed after them. And we'll advise them, like, look, get the license plate if you can do so safely. Keep an eye on the subject if you can do so safely. But some people are so hell-bent, and a lot of times this does happen with road rage, where they're just compelled to become the police. I've even had a 911 call once from a man who pulled over a teenager. He literally acted as a sovereign police officer and pulled over a teenager. And he's sitting there lecturing the boy where he says, you just wait till the police get here. They're going to be so angry. I'm like, the police will not have seen the violation. So, we're getting into a stickier situation already. And you're detaining a juvenile who wants to leave. So you're putting yourself at some risk there.
If I can add, John, I mean, I get it. It's a rush. It's a rush following people. It's a rush, trying to keep your eye on somebody who committed a crime, though you may not understand the scope of what they've done. That's why we signed up to be cops. Like, we love that rush. So I get it. However, we have to worry about what's going to happen. What happens if the guy in your scenario, John, slams on the brakes and jumps out of the car? Now we have a whole different situation in our hand. Now it's I had to defend myself, so I shot him situation, or the guy was like, look, I was just looking at my cell phone. Why are you following me situation?
Mm-hmm.
And, so
that happens all the time, though.
Yeah. It's kind of like, man, I really, we push, see something, say something, but at the same time, we're just kind of like, you got to let the professionals in and handle it. You know what I mean?
This is the dividing line. This is when a person becomes either a police officer or a 911 dispatcher, because I myself have seen dozens of random stabbings and I have never taken any action to intervene or to call anyone. I always feel like, just let people do their own thing. Let's see how it plays out. I like to mind my own business. So anyway, someone's following this person around Phoenix because they've stabbed someone. What are the dangers here of them getting involved? Well, first of all, if a 911 dispatcher doesn't say, hey, why don't you back off of that? If they're pressing them, or at least tacitly not telling them not to, it's possible that 911 dispatcher could be opening themselves up to some kind of liability. Generally, there's what what am I call it, qualified immunity, where we're not necessarily liable for things that our callers do on the phone. Some jurisdictions have called for an end to that. I know that Boston at one point was trying to call for qualified immunity to come to an end, even for 911 dispatchers. What that would mean is, if I have someone in a burning house and I tell them to leave the house and they jump out the second story window to their death, I might be responsible for a wrongful death lawsuit, So you generally tell callers to not get involved, to not get too close. And certainly if this guy's on a stabbing rampage, if you try to get close because you're trying to be your hero, you're more likely to just become a casualty. You're someone that a police officer has to drag away instead of directly confronting that subject. So if you're someone that, and you're seeing a crime, if you call 911, we're generally going to encourage you not to get involved. We're going to encourage you not to chase them, not to follow them, not to pursue them. In fact, I've had to tell police officers that we've had 911 callers in pursuit. The cops get mad at me. They're like, tell them to stop. I'm like, I did, damn it.
I tried.
I did get on the radio and I say, God damn it. I told them to stop. Thank you for telling me to tell them the obvious thing.
Yeah.
But no, they'll chase. So just if you want to call 911 and you want to make an impact in your community, just be ready to do so more passively and let the police be active.
Just be a great witness. I mean, I do get the thrill of some people find it duty. Like, we don't know the severity of, and that's kind of the other thing with the subsequent 911 calls. Like, we're getting multiple calls is an indicator that something big's going on here. One, because multiple people are calling, but two, now we're talking about somebody bleeding. The first thing was he was stabbed with a metal object. Now we're up to, well, now somebody's bleeding. So the officers that are en route are thinking, we definitely have a stabbing here. This guy could bleed out. We could have a homicide on our hands. We need to get there quickly. But when you got a citizen kind of following them, again, we're not in the business of creating victims, as John just kind of told you.
And if you've got two people on foot, say one's your stabber guy and one's your helper guy, cops get there and they don't know who's who. It's confusing. Right. Why add a layer of confusion to a deadly situation? I mean, maybe. Wait, no, let's not do that. Let's not add a layer of confusion to a very dangerous situation. The other thing is the 911 dispatchers are also thinking about is, now we've got a guy stabbed with a jack in the box. We're trying to figure out in the comm center, is that a duplicate? Do we have more than one person stabbed? The reason for that is we need more than one ambulance. Now, we also have talked about this many times before, but just to follow through, you generally don't send EMTs, firefighters into a stabbing situation. Police officers have got to get there first. Even if you've got people who are down and bleeding, we can't send responders in there to get knifed or stabbed or whatever. So cops got to go in first, Drew.
To be clear, they'll be rolling. They'll be headed that way. It's just that they're not going to get anywhere close to that until the scene is safe, and that's understandable. That's not their position is rescue and recovery. We need to make the scene safe for them to do that.
Very dangerous situation. If I'm calling the shots as a police lieutenant, I'm going to be telling all the cops to go in their lights and sirens code 3 and to run down that guy in the street as soon as possible. Just hit him with a car. That's my favorite thing, Drew.
I do know that's your favorite thing.
Folks, that I am not a police officer. All right, so we'll go ahead and go straight to the body cam, Drew. I'll throw it up on the screen and I'll let you control it if you like.
Okay.
It's both angles. We start with the officer who was involved in the shooting, and then another officer who was on scene who was involved in giving commands and securing the scene. So I'll throw it on the screen and let you control it.
Okay.
Here we go. We're going to play the body cam footage.
He's armed with the knife.
Get your fucking hands up! Hands up!
Give us the radio. He's armed with the knife. He's walking away.
Get your fucking hands up! Hey, Marty!
I just muted it instead of paused it. But okay, look, harsh language, sure. The situation might dictate it. Like, you don't want to come off as meek and mild in this situation. One, but two, you heard what happened. Like, he's yelling and screaming, so I can see where people would be like, well, obviously he's not in his right state of mind. You got out yelling F this and F that.
No, sometimes people are assholes and they're perfectly sane.
Yeah, well, not only that, but not only that. No, I'm talking about the officer. Like, the officer was obviously.
Oh, the officer may be mentally ill. I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, the officer's obviously infuriated because he got out of the car dropping F-bombs, but he also grabbed his microphone and said, he's walking away from me and he's got a knife.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between being unchained and then being calm, yes, which he is on the radio. I encourage you to listen even after this is over. Listen to him on the radio, and his directions to the suspect have got to be loud. They've got to be clear, and they have to be unequivocal.
There's bravado behind it. There's no question. But he's holding a handgun at a guy who's holding an edged weapon of some sort that literally just stabs somebody that by description stabbed an Indian male. So we know that there's a victim. Somebody saw a victim bleeding. The victim was, so you know what I mean? Yeah, there's a lot of bravado there, but that's law enforcement. That's I think there are a lot of critics that would say that, that's just too much, but those are the same critics that have never done the job and can very comfortably do so from the comfort of their.
Well, those critics are either A, jealous that they don't get to just rampantly swear loudly at their job, or B, hypocrites because they are doing that. They are handling
and they get in trouble
things at the Amazon warehouse and saying, "Damn it, fuck," but they're not on body cam. So
take your fucking French fries. I said take your fucking French fries. Like, yeah, you get in trouble for that.
Thanks for stopping at Jack in the Box.
J and the B.
Pepper. He's running from us, still armed with a knife.
So for those listening, he's running in traffic. The guy, I think, is kind of he's in the outside lane. Is that the inside? He's in the outside lane walking up of a maybe 3 or 4 lane highway. The cop, however, is running to try to keep pace with him, and he's in the 2nd or 3rd lane. There are cars kind of driving at him. Luckily, it looks like it's a red light or.
Get your fucking hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Get your fucking hands up! Hands up!
Pepper ball gun going off.
Yeah, if you saw off to the left and those that heard pop, 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 that was not gunfire. That was the pepper ball gun. There's somebody to the left of that officer. And again, but you really have to watch for crossfire in situations like this. And they hit him with the pepper ball gun, which tells you what? This is a measure of de-escalation, though it seems odd that they're chasing after a guy with a gun out and holding a pepper ball gun, pointed at him, and then they hit him with pepper balls as a means of de-escalation. Yes, it is. This is a deadly force situation. The threat of death or great bodily harm to yourself or to somebody else. The bodily harm, the great bodily harm has already occurred, by the way, but it's still going on. The guy's not stopping. He's not listening to your commands, and he's still holding the weapon, and it's a dangerous situation. So they gave it a shot with the pepper balls. It didn't work. He, by the way, is now facing both of them, but he's walking backwards.
Put a round in my ass! Hands up! Put a round in my ass!
Now, I don't know exactly what he's saying here. I think
he's saying put a real round in my ass. He's begging to be shot by an actual live ammunition round. He's been hit with the pepper balls, and he's not impressed. This guy is absolutely hyped up. He's full-blown rage, and I would not call this a suicide by cop situation just because of the anger and the fact that he stabbed somebody else and he's retreating, but he's daring them. He's saying put a real round in my ass. He's daring them to do it because he doesn't think that they will.
Okay, so he's not saying put a nubile in my ass, because that's what I heard. Okay, very good.
I don't even know what that would mean. I'm not a cop. Maybe it means
I would have been confused too, and that's a dangerous situation.
Would you have done that thing where you scratch your chin with the tip of your gun, wondering what it was?
Yes, just trying to work my way through it.
Get your hands up! Hands up! Hands up!
All right, this will be better demonstrated in the other officer's body cam, but you can see him walking. They have perfectly triangulated. If you looked at it, there's an officer holding deadly force on him, which is the body cam we're looking at, and he's looking directly at the guy. Off to the left is a female officer who just deployed the pepper balls. And then off to the right, you'll see in a second, there's a patrol car that just kind of U-turned and is going to head them off at the pass. So they're not necessarily in a crossfire situation. They're aware of each other's presence, and they are definitely aware of the bad guy's presence. But, this guy is not stopping. He's continuing to walk, and he's not dropping whatever he has. So it's not necessarily just because he won't surrender. It's also because he won't give up what he's holding. So the threat still exists.
They're taking control of the situation by forming up what they call a containy thing.
Yes, I believe self-defense experts across the USA call that the containing thing.
Real good, motherfucker. Hands up! Hands up!
Suspects down.
So with proper warning, several times. Again, this is not necessarily that he's advancing. It's not that they're putting themselves in danger into this 21-foot rule that I've referred to before, which is like, when you're dealing with edge weapons, somebody can get to you before you can fire off a round if they're within 21 feet. That's generally refers to your gun in the holster, by the way, but different topic. But stopping the threat, preventing the escape, whatever you want to call it, this guy is still actively
He's not complying.
He's definitely not complying. He shows no signs of compliance.
He may have stabbed one or two people already. The only difference between him as an active shooter is his effective range. He's still, he's still a dangerous person.
He's his choice of weapon. Yeah,
his choice of weapon limits his effective range. Right. He's still a very dangerous person for all we know. If anyone tries to approach him, whether it's a police officer or a little old lady walking her dog who's going to come around the street, she's deaf. She doesn't hear the gunfire or whatever. All of a sudden, she's the next stabbing victim. You've got to stop this guy. We've given him plenty of chances to do so. I think that he is totally unaware of the situation that he has put himself in. He's in control of that situation as long as he has the knife and as long as he's not responding to commands. The police have to take control of that situation in order to keep the community safe. We pay taxes in Phoenix. I'm a Phoenix taxpayer for the police department in Phoenix to keep our community safe. Well, this guy's dangerous and he's on the loose and he's not surrendering. We did try de-escalating him. We tried talking to him. We gave him plenty of chances and he's not doing it. I don't care that he's saying put a real round in my ass. He's hyped up or whatever. But he finally gets shot. And he groans and he realizes, oh, it hurts to get shot. And the police officers, I'm sure, must be feeling like, why couldn't you have figured that out 2 seconds ago?
Yeah.
Because now these police officers are going to be jammed up for years. There's going to be an internal investigation, even if it's totally justified. It's going to take forever and a day for these police officers to find out that they did everything right. Now, Drew, I'm curious if you don't mind me asking you a question. It's very poor form of me to ask my co-host questions, but he is advancing. He's sort of traversing laterally. He doesn't seem to be charging anyone. I know you talked about the 21-foot rule where that could change on a dime. It seems like they decided to not give him that opportunity, which I think is wise, and they went ahead and take the shot. Do you want to talk about why they would shoot him as he traversed laterally?
I'm going with totality of circumstances here. Okay. I don't know what time of day this was, but it's very clear that it was a busy time of day because just judging by or at least that it was a busy area, just judging by the number of cars that they're dodging just to do the containing thing. First of all. Second of all, if you look, they're walking along businesses. Therefore, there's no telling at what point a 6-year-old kid is going to pop out of that business that's to their right and be right in this guy's path. And now, and look, I don't want to what if all day long, but these are the kinds of things when you're trying to evaluate in a millisecond, by the way, is he a threat of death or great bodily harm to himself or to somebody else? I tend to say yes, because as John told you also from the beginning, it was either December 13th or 16th. Well, what happens in mid-December, particularly around the 13th or 16th, around business areas? It's buzzing. It's
Christmas
people
shopping.
out. Christmas shopping, robberies.
Kids are probably out.
All kinds of stuff. Kids might be out of school. So these are the kinds of things that you probably don't know that you're evaluating, but you're evaluating. And especially if you're in a very densely populated area or business, like a business plaza or something like that.
I would say look at the backstop too. I mean, even a few feet ago, he was in front of a parking lot there where the risk of ricochet is higher or whatever. I mean, shooting in the downtown areas they are is already dangerous enough, but behind the suspect now, there's a little bit of landscaping, right? There's a dirt berm, there's some rocks there, and hopefully, if he can get a trajectory through his center mass, the best case scenario is that that's going to go into the ground right there, and it's not going to sail any distance through the city. So, I think you could look at that and say it's not a perfect situation, but you have no idea what the coming seconds are going to hold. If he takes off running, and all of a sudden he's running down another thoroughfare, you're not going to get a clean shot at all because he's going to be surrounded by cars. So it's almost a now or never situation, I would guess, in terms of deciding to do it now.
Right. And the little discussed, the not as frequently discussed factor of preventing escape of a forcible felony is also in play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just necessarily the threat or risk of death or great bodily harm, but I don't know how Arizona statutes are written. I think that was that Nevada?
Many states have felon in flight, right? Where if you know someone has committed a felony, you're allowed to use deadly force to stop that person from committing a crime or getting away.
Yeah, I would say that's not at the top of their checklist, but from a legal standpoint, that probably should be evaluated.
I talked to a deputy in Montana on my other show, Hard Time, and he talked about how they have fleeing felon there, but they were instructed in the academy, hey, this exists, but maybe don't rely on it. Like there should be other reasons why you're shooting.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to have this your last leg of justification of your shooting be fleeing felon, but it does exist in some places, and it will cover people as a last resort. It's just not, of course, now we live in an age where all of our case law is not necessarily durable. You could be someone like Ben Darby and take a shot completely justified and still go to jail. So, be careful, police officers.
Right. No. So I'm glad you said that. Be careful, police officers, because it gets back to our original conversation. These guys, first of all, nobody goes to work wanting to shoot somebody. It just doesn't work that way. And two, this guy, whoever pulled the trigger here is going to have to live with this for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. And he is in for a long road ahead. All the officers out there are in for a long road ahead. There's some officers where I used to work that there was just a simple in custody death that another agency is investigating. Back 10 years ago, it was just like, yeah, he was in your custody and he died. Now it's like, we're going to investigate this so thoroughly, make sure every T is crossed and every I is dotted, which is fine. I mean, that's what the citizens wanted. Okay. But to assume that cops are on the offensive and looking to shoot somebody, nobody wants that scrutiny. Nobody wants to take a life, first of all.
Drew,
nobody wants that scrutiny.
Answer me this question. I'm going to put you on the spot here like I never have before, but you know what? We've been doing this for a year, and frankly, I'm sick of it. You were a patrol deputy.
Yes.
Right?
I was.
Okay, and I want you to confess on the stand right now in front of all these people. You would have had a lovely day sitting on your ass in that car eating donuts, and you didn't want to get called to shit, right?
Yeah, more than likely.
Okay,
no, I was a little bit more mobile than.
Yeah, you were proactive, but what I'm saying is police officers would rather have a day with nothing happen and not be called to respond to the scene of a man stabbing people at the Jack in the Box. They would rather do nothing, or they would rather be proactively going after criminals rather than having to respond to this madness reactively. Yeah, this is not this guy's perfect day.
No, firefighters are heroes for doing the exact same thing. Like they sit around and do nothing and lift weights and rub each other's backs and cook things until it's time to run into a fire or save a cop or say whatever. I joke, I jide about the firefighters, but realistically, they have like one of the planet's most dangerous jobs. You're running into a fire. You're trying to extinguish a fire, and they're considered heroes when it happens. These cops are jumping into action just the same. They would prefer to be sitting in the Starbucks probably shooting shit. But they're not. They're jumping into action just like a firefighter would, and they're having to immobilize a threat of somebody that potentially just murdered somebody. So
hot take, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Fire's the real hero, because if not for fire, we wouldn't even need firefighters. Go on.
I don't know that I disagree with you at all. I can't.
7-5-15 network.
Oxygen's the real hero, because without oxygen, there's
998. He's down. He's on the ground.
Get sick of your pro oxygen tanks.
I know. So I'm an oxygenist. There's no question. So I'm an oxygen supremacist. There's again, we see solid examples of him calmly getting on the radio saying, send me medical. I need medical. This is not a crazed, out of his mind, I panicked gunman cop. This is somebody who, had to do what none of us wanted to do. And he did it. And, again.
And you'll note that another police officer gives commands to him to drop the knife. They want to be able to get over to him to secure him and to put pressure on that wound to save his life.
Right. And this is my old argument too, by the way. The public clamored for body-worn cameras to see this exactly. But now when they have the evidence in front of them in the form of the body-worn camera, they don't believe it anyway.
They didn't want to know how the sausage got made, Drew.
So what's the point? Yeah.
No. But
again, it all stems from oxygen. We're going to go to the second body cam. This is the female.
So the officer that does the shooting is crossing the screen now. That's the
you
officer
can see him off to the left, and he's running with a purpose. He's walking with a purpose. This person is at first walking, then somebody passes them, and they realize, okay, I got to pick up my pace. You'll see him. Constant communication, by the way. He's running up there. They're trying to catch up to him. He's, one guy's on the radio. This, I think this is the female's body cam, and she's saying, I got less than lethal, or somebody saying, bring the pepper up, or something to that effect. But they are communicating. This is not like just a haphazard, just a bunch of cops wanting to play pile-on. If you're listening to this and not watching, it's very obvious that they are on the set of Clydesdales.
Yes. There's the pepper ball gun.
Pepper ball deployed. She's non-compliant.
Okay, I was mistaken. The female didn't have the pepper ball gun, but she mentioned on the radio, pepper ball deployed. This is all for logging purposes. Like, look, these are our attempts. We're trying to de-escalate. We're trying to do whatever. Obviously they're not saying that, but they're giving it everything they can to ease the situation, to get the situation under control.
Put a real round in my ass! Hands up! Put a real round in my ass!
Get out of the way, black shirt! Get out of the way!
Put a real round in my ass!
Get out of the way!
So she recognized some type of crossfire. Go ahead.
Yeah, look at how many people are here. We when we were looking at the shot earlier where the police officer decided to use deadly force to stop the attack, when you looked at that one frame, there was no one around him. And so just looking without that context, it looks like, well, he shot a guy just walking down the street. Nobody's in danger. Look all around him. There's cars everywhere.
Everywhere. Right. And that's they're parallel or perpendicular to the parking lot that you were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are apartments that he's in front of right now on the street, but maybe a storage unit or something. Okay, if you'll look at the body camera angle here, you'll see that there's a police car blocking traffic, which is great tactical maneuver, so we don't bring more innocents into this situation. There's also 3 of them in a line, so it's literally like the firing line at a range. But notice that you only hear 4 shots from one gun. You don't hear 4 shots from one gun, 2 shots from another, 2 shots from another, and pepper ball. It's just a very managed situation, and it's a last resort.
Drop the knife.
That's the end of that. The suspect was taken into custody, but he was later pronounced dead. He did not survive. So that's unfortunate because that person had a bad day or something. A beef with somebody or whatever that needed to escalate to the point of stabbing. And then in a confrontation with police, he decided trial by combat. He could have used all of his rights, his constitutional rights to remain silent, to due process, to a quick and fair trial, to confront his accusers. And he said, no, I'm not going to respond to this police command to throw down my knife and to be taken safely into custody. I'm going to have it all out right here. And what did he get? He got the death sentence because he chose trial by combat. Folks, We have a serious problem in this country with people resisting arrest. People act like arrest is the end of the world, like a police officer is going to arrest you and take you directly to the guillotine. That's not the situation. When a police officer arrests you, you are not fighting for your life. A process has begun in which your rights will be protected. Cooperate with the police officer. You do not need to say anything. You have the right to remain silent, but put your hands behind your back. Follow all directions. Be safe. There's no reason to put yourself into further danger. Even if you have gone out and stabbed somebody, you know what? You can come out of that situation, and depending on the mitigating circumstances of what's going on, maybe you're not going away for the rest of your life. Maybe you're not going to be executed. There's so much we don't know about this situation, but people treat it in their confrontation with police officers as they're crossing the Rubicon. This is it. This is the end. This is forever. This is goodbye. And it does not need to be that way. All you have to do is comply. And so to anyone criticizing police officers for taking lives, criticize the people who just won't throw down a goddamn knife and put their hands above their head. That's a lot easier than it is to shoot somebody. Drew.
It gets back to the original conversation. It's perpetuated. It's perpetuated that law enforcement officers are there to harm you, particularly in the black community. So when you have LeBron James, who has a couple million followers on Instagram and X or Twitter or whatever it was back then, saying that, I don't feel safe. I don't feel like I can walk out of my, and then you have Ben Crump filing lawsuits left and right because he's hungry for money. You have Barack Obama saying, hey, that could have been Trayvon Martin could have been my son. Trayvon Martin wasn't killed by a police officer, by the way. No,
he wasn't.
And the guy was brought to a jury. The guy was brought to a trial, and he was acquitted because Trayvon Martin was beating the shit out of him.
Thank you for mentioning Trayvon Martin specifically. I know that when Randy Moss appeared at the Football Hall of Fame, he was wearing a necktie which contained the names of many people who were struck down by police. Trayvon Martin's name was on that tie, and I had to remind Mr. Randy Moss that he is an idiot.
So this is the power and the danger of perpetuating bad stereotypes, because that's what it is. It's a stereotype. It's a stereotype to say the police are aggressive and are going to kill you. It's a stereotype to think that black people are bad and that they're out committing crimes. It's all situational. It's not dispositional. And you have to understand that. And when you perpetuate that, and then on top of that, have the nerve to accuse the people that are trying to safeguard that, at least uphold or defend the Constitution, it's offensive. And I just don't want to see anybody. I don't want any harm to come to any citizen. I don't want any harm to come to any cop, just based on somebody else's perpetuation of something that isn't untrue, because anybody can show you through actual data that there is more likely, you are more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to be shot by a police officer if you're a black male. That's statistically proven over and over again. But there are people that just don't want to hear that. They just want to perpetuate what they want to perpetuate, and it's undermining our safety.
Well, we live in a post-truth society where it doesn't matter what facts you present, the feelings are somehow more true than facts. And yes. we also live in a society where now the anecdote of the personal experience is somehow superior to ethical numbers gathering. I'm as suspicious of statistics as anyone else, but I'm doubly suspicious of someone's personal life experience as being a complete and accurate microcosm for the entire country.
The What Killed Michael Brown documentary, I've talked about it a million times. I love that thing. Shelby Steele, Eli Steele, they did this documentary, What Killed Michael Brown. Please watch it. I mean, it's so well stated. It's the poetic truth versus the abject truth. The poetic truth is, this guy, if he is a black man, we're going to see Al Sharpton. They're going to talk about Bull Connor. They're going to talk about, quote, all the others that were killed because cops are mowing down black people at an alarming rate. It's not the reality. The statistics don't match. And the fact is, Randy Moss can fit those on a tie. You can fit them on the front of a t-shirt, but they span from like 2012, 2013, all the way to 2024. Okay. Well, let me show you the cops that were killed.
Yeah, there were 56 shot last year, and I can't fit all of those on a tie, Drew.
Yeah, and if you want to, I mean, and listen, I'm not here to race bait. I told you where I feel from the beginning about the golden rule. But if you want to talk about the last two friends of mine that were murdered as law enforcement officers were murdered by supposedly unarmed black males. So I mean, if you want to compare apples to apples, I'll do it all day long. If you want to, if you want to use anecdotes and not statistics, I'll do that all day long. But if you look nationally as well, 40%, 12% of the population is responsible for 40% of the violent crimes. And I understand that there is a reason for that. There are greater social reasons for that happening, but that's not on law enforcement. That all law enforcement is there to do is to restore order and protect the citizens. It's not to go on the offensive like we're being painted. So I really didn't want to make this whole episode about that. That's what it turned into. But, just like John said, I wanted to get back to the bread and butter as kind of a palate cleanse to show you, look, we take what the dispatcher does and we take what the cop does and give you our perspective.
We also take what the callers give us, which,
yes,
as I mentioned in my little personal anecdote, is sometimes its own thing. So don't put that on the institution when the call for service is coming from somebody in the community. We're just responding to what we're asked to do.
Yeah. I just, not to beat a dead horse, so to speak, but it happens at least once or twice a year where somebody will call on a family member who is, quote, not right in the head, or having some type of mental health crisis. They're holding a knife. We don't know what to do. And the police get there. And next thing you know, there's some type of shooting. And they say, that's not what we called you for. So did you call me to be stabbed? I mean, did you call me to bring a mental health person that is going to expose themselves without any weapon or, to the very thing that you didn't want to expose yourself to? What did you call me for? So it's a dilemma.
Sometimes that happens with humorous consequences. Senior citizen who was lost and disoriented was found in my community, and someone called the police to report that he needed help. And she said, well, I'd rather not a police officer respond. And she took exception to the fact that I said, well, you are calling the police. I guess that was a little too smart-assy for her. I don't know if you thought I was going to send a chopper with like a silver protection agent who was going to rappel out and help Grandpa find his way home. Truth is that police fill every situation in which the common person needs help. So
we can't send firefighters everywhere, John.
No, the firefighters were napping. I do have a couple voicemails. Would like you to hit like and subscribe to keep up with the Comm Center, whether you're listening or watching on YouTube or Rumble. But I want to go ahead and play the voicemail. We got two of them this week, Drew. And folks, if you want to leave a voicemail, you can do so by calling Drew's personal cell, 993. No, I'm just kidding. Call us at 848-COMM-911. That's 848-266-6911. 848-COMM-911. You can call us and leave a voicemail. We will return with live shows. Live shows are pending. Any old day now, we're going to be more live than you can handle.
Yeah.
And you can call in, and you can confront us directly and call us to the carpet, or tell us all kinds of jokes or pretend to be Sergey from Russia about my car's warranty.
We may do a show right from your front yard.
We may do a show right from my front yard, in which my full address is on display, and we will just invite you to come out and maybe there are some things we should just settle physically. I don't know, because it's like you can talk to some people and it never gets through to them. So I guess.
Greco-Roman. It's
Greco-Roman style. If you don't mind greasing up on the lawn, I mean, there's fresh snow out there. Should be invigorating.
I've seen videos.
If your family is confused about it, you can call it a Polar Bear Club thing. All right, a couple of voicemails. I'll go ahead and play it.
Hey, John and Drew. This is Jim from Florida. Haven't called in a while. Been on special assignment, but I'm back. John, great double episode on the top 10. I think you really captured the essence of the culture of the Comm Center and expectations of them and the reality of their job, and I appreciate it. Never having been a dispatcher or telecommunicator, I can only be thankful for the job that they do, and I just pray that 2024 is the best year yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for praising me.
Yes.
and no one else. I appreciate that on Drew's top 10 list of things that
Noticeably
pissed Drew off, you said that John did a good job on that.
Right.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. I could actually use some encouragement right now. So to get some from you, even if it's just meant to sarcastically bother Drew, somehow I'm still gaining some kind of something positive out of that. So I appreciate it.
That part.
Well, whatever, but I hope that 2024 is great for you. I hope that you jail hundreds of men justly and, or whatever it is that you do.
Yeah. If he is in fact a police officer.
I don't know if he is or not. Well, you can always go rogue and be a sovereign police officer and pull people over and dial 911. Like we said at the start of the show, I bet Jim knows the rules of the road. He probably knows the rules of homicide too, like when that's okay and not okay. And so, Jim, if you do see someone and you want to act as a police officer and behave as dangerously as possible, whatever. I'm not your 911 dispatcher, so if you want to,
yes, he does have carte blanche to follow.
I would love carte blanche. I would love that. I never get carte blanche. We have martial law, but I still don't have carte blanche.
I went to high school with martial law.
Did you?
John, do you have any other shows that you're associated with that probably deserve to have some attention to?
I do. If you guys like my half of the show, the snarky, like uninformed half, that's me. I'm John. I do another show called Hard Time. It's just launched on Spotify. It launched on Google Music, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Anyway, if you look for it a little bit, you could probably find it. We talk about corrections, so it's like this show, only it's more correction-y, and we're a little bit more loosey-goosey. Like we're not, like Drew and I are on a mission to inform the world about what 911 dispatchers do, and we want you to know what that is. On a Hard Time, we're on a mission to tell you what correction officers do, and if you never get it, that's fine with us. We're a little bit more relaxed over there, but thank you for allowing me to talk about that show. I encourage you to listen to it. We've got about 40 episodes over there that are fun. I do have one more voicemail that's apropos of nothing at all.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and play it at this time, which is just so ironic. You have no idea. I'll go ahead and play that second message now.
Hey, Comm Center, it's Micah. I was just calling to see if you guys had heard about the recent discovery in Egypt. They just discovered a pharaoh in his tomb, but it was covered in chocolate and nuts. So they're wondering if they finally found Pharaoh Rocher. All right, guys, I'll see you on Thursday in the comments.
God bless him.
I think he knows that I'm getting sick of a certain brand of joke around these parts, and he's finally cleaning it up. I think he knows that Comm Center is above all a family show. It's a place where family comes together, a place where family finds the reason why they love each other and why they abide together and why they can put it all behind them and be a family. Damn it!
Right. Sit at the same Thanksgiving table.
Yeah, sit at the same Thanksgiving table. But folks, if you like this show, like we said, you can follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on Rumble. But if you're listening as a podcast and you're an Apple person, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts. You can also listen to us on Spotify if that's your thing. You can leave us a 5-star rating over there. You can also find us on a third thing, and I wanted to mention what that is exactly right now. Possibly Instagram. You can find Drew at the Comm Center on Instagram, but also you can find Drew at What Say Drew. That's his blue check mark. If you want to reach out to Drew and you feel like calling him on the phone at 3 a.m. is a little too invasive, you could send him a DM or a DM over to the Comm Center. If you wanted to reach me, which why would you want to do that? But maybe some people do. You could reach me at difficult to look at pictures. If you have the time and energy and willpower to get through that long handle, it must mean you really want to talk to me. That's kind of the gatekeeper, how I keep, wishy-washy people away. But we appreciate you sending me messages. I've talked to quite a few people this past week. Many of you did appreciate our last episode. It wasn't all complaints and confrontation. I wanted to say thank you to those people who listened to it and gave it a shot. Even I had my own issues with the last episode. But we're many things here at the Comm Center, and most of all, we're Drew's moist, wrinkly brain, and whatever's in there is what we're going to be. And I'm happy to be along for the ride. Thank you to our producer Dewey, who is here doing things and reminding me to not be so racist and to not ramble on so long. Dewey, great job as always. And Drew, I'll leave it to you to take the show out.
I just want to know from you people out there, because I know there are people listening and watching. How are we doing? Like, it's rare to get a flash of validation in in the careers that we chose to begin with. It's even more rare when you try to take your opinions and put them public. We don't get everything right. I'm not right 100% of the time, and I fear living in an echo chamber, which is why we are completely open to Samuel Ansong coming on here and talking, giving his side of the story, in other words. So you want to come on and tell a story, the door is open. You need to, just reach out to us. But I would also like for you, aside from a rating or review, shoot us a DM. Tell us what we're doing. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us how racist we are. Tell us how you get it. You understand that we're very loving people.
I love you.
John walks with Jesus. He's doing his best to look like Jesus. I'm working on all of my spirituality. I'm just, kind of a guy existing in the world that goes by that golden rule that I told you about 50 some odd minutes ago. Do unto others as you wish them to do unto you. And it's pretty simple to live by.
Jesus did say that, Drew.
Okay, let's not get righteous on me. So on behalf of John, who is the other half of Hard Time, and myself, who is not a racist.
Not racist.
No, we're not racist. And Dewey, who is our extraordinary producer who's been working on the thumbnails on YouTube. If you see an improvement there, it's all on Dewey. Some of it's on John because he still contributes, but
I spurred Dewey on to excellence is what happens.
Right, you did. You
Dewey takes a look at what I've done. He goes, "Oh, is that what we settle for around here?" And then he makes it more. Then he makes it more pastel or something, and then it's good.
You were the you're the VJ Singh to his Tiger Woods. So from all of us to all of you, we love you, John. Stick around. We'll be back next week with another great episode.
100 episodes of Comm Center.
1,000
years.
This is the 1,000.
1,000 seasons of Comm Center.
Right here. Right.
More Comm Center. Emmanuel Lewis. Comm Center forever.
This is the Comm Center, the show that brings you... Fuck.